All right, good morning, everybody. Today is July 2nd. The Board of Commissioners are in session, convened as the Board of Equalization to conduct assessment appeal hearings. Commissioner Davidson and Commissioner Daly are present. Commissioner Beck is absent. Mr. Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, sir, except to the daily.
All right, the chair would entertain a motion to amend the daily agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move to amend the daily agenda to remove the 9 o'clock legal staff meeting.
I'll second that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Now, before we get started, I would like to have everybody silence their cell phones, and then we are going to play a declaration regarding the appeal process. After it plays, I will ask everyone planning to present testimony to stand and raise their right hand to be sworn in. Now we'll play the disclaimer.
The purpose of this hearing is for the Board of Equalization, BOE, to provide taxpayers with an opportunity to appeal the assessed value placed on their property for taxing purposes. For each hearing, the appellant will be given 3 minutes to make their presentation, after which the appraiser will give a factual presentation on how the assessed value was established. Each appellant will then have a chance to provide a final 2-minute rebuttal. The board will then make a decision. Anyone wishing to give testimony will have to be sworn in. All motions made during these hearings will be made by the Board of Commissioners convened as the Board of Equalization. Pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63501A, only the property owner taxpayer or their legal counsel may appear before the Board of Equalization. You may, however, call witnesses to testify on your behalf within your allotted time frame. We are aware that some appellants may not be able to appear at their scheduled hearing due to our statutory time frame to hear appeals. However, the board does review and consider all documents and information provided when making our decisions. As set forth in Idaho Code 63502, the burden of proof falls to the taxpayer seeking relief to establish that the determination of the assessor is erroneous, including any determination of the assessed value. Otherwise, this board shall uphold the assessed value. It is important to note that if there is a reduction in your taxable value, it does not reduce resources to the governing entities, but in fact shifts the tax burden to other taxpayers in the district. Any adjustment made on your assessment will be in place for the current tax year only. Please understand, after the current tax year, the adjustment will be removed and your property value could change drastically if market conditions warrant it. If you are not satisfied with the BOE's decision, you will have an opportunity to appeal the decision to the Board of Tax Appeals or the District Court.
All right, thank you. Now, everybody who is going to present testimony in the 10 o'clock block of hearings, please stand and raise your right hand. That's anyone in the 10 o'clock block who's going to be presenting. All right, our clerk will swear you in.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do. All right, please have a seat. So we'll take up appeals on parcels R69070101110 and R69070100160, Albertson Stores Sub LLC. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Peter Smith. I'm an attorney with Smith & Malik here in Boise.
I'm Caroline Miner with Altus Group.
And would you like to present these simultaneously or each one individually?
I'm the attorney representing the owner, so we're going to call a witness. That's going to be Ms. Miner. She's going to present on the data supporting the appeal and the new assessed value.
Okay. Now you have two parcels. Would you like to argue them separately or argue them as one combined
I think
argument?
we'll argue them together.
Okay. So we'll give you 5 minutes to present your case. We can ask questions throughout, then we'll allow the assessor's office to respond, and then you can do a closing rebuttal. Are you ready to proceed?
We are ready to proceed, yes.
All right, floor is yours.
So the two parcels on appeal, one of the value is reduced by the Board of Tax Appeals, and now it's on appeal to the District Court here in Ada County. So I wanted to make the commissioners aware of that. So one option the commissioners have is certainly to adopt the value determined at the hearing by the Board of Tax Appeals. The second parcel was not appealed, however, its value was referenced in an appraisal for that. And I'll let Ms. Minor talk about the 2024 valuation of both parcels, but I wanted to make the commissioners aware that there was an appeal on parcel 110, and that value was reduced by the Board of Tax Appeals. Now I'll turn it over to Ms. Minor to present.
Thank you very much. We are talking about the Albertsons headquarter building at roll for $4,754,000. These two parcels operate as an economic unit, so the total assessed value of this parcel is currently $41,941,900. Because these are separate appeals, you do have two separate presentation packets in front of you. The second smaller one addresses the land value separately. But in the first place, because we have very limited time, this Albertsons office building is classified or viewed in the market as a Class B suburban low-rise office building, and it's 2 stories. Its current configuration is for a single user. It would be very, very difficult to divide this building into a multi-tenant building, so we have viewed the building as one single building and treated it as it exists today. Because it was originally constructed as a corporate-style office building, it's never been substantially renovated. It's been a single user for its entire 40-plus years of existence. The building itself is very workmanlike. It's serviceable, they maintain it, and therefore it's able to continue performing its function as an office building. Albertsons owns the building, they do not pay rent. So the county has applied an income approach, which they'll allow them to present, but we have followed that methodology just for consistency. So what we did was research triple net lease rates in the Boise market. We looked for older buildings that were considered Class B, where there's space being leased to the largest block that we could find, largest block of space. So on page 2 of my first presentation, in the middle of the page, you'll see that for the calendar year 2023, we identified a single lease that was a new lease, as in not an extension or a renewal of an existing lease, and it wasn't an expansion. So this was a new lease. It was in a smaller property located on West Airport Way, and that property leased 10,000 square feet for about $11.47 per square foot. That was the only lease that we found in a comparable property during calendar year 2023. There are other properties. There's quite a bit of newer product out in the Meridian area, but as Albertsons is not in the central business district, but it is suburban Boise, it didn't feel appropriate to go all the way out to Eagle and Meridian to find comparables. At the bottom of page 2, we have a income pro forma, which uses the rental rate that we have assumed. So the single lease that we found was $11.47. It was for 10,000 square feet. We are talking about leasing over 230,000 square feet in a single building. Typically, what you'll see in the market is that you'll get a discount for the larger space that you lease. So the larger your space, theoretically, the lower your rent, you have a certain amount of carrying cost. So we took a 15% downward adjustment on that 10,000 square foot lease that we found and applied $9.75 for a rental rate for this entire building. The stabilized vacancy applied in our model is the same as the county's. We used a very similar expense ratio as well, but we do have a difference in capitalization rate. When you're doing an income pro forma to find a value on a property, you use a direct capitalization, which considers 1 year of income. There's no adjustment in here for lease-up costs of any kind. So no tenant improvements, no free rent. It's just rent less vacancy and expenses divided by a capitalization rate. The capitalization rate we used derives from national surveys. Oh, is that my time?
You can take some more time since you have 2 appeals.
Apologize. I will keep talking fast. And so we referenced 2 national surveys. Both of these national surveys address the difference between central business district office buildings and suburban office buildings. They also address the difference between a first-tier market, which is considered like a gateway market, think Seattle, Washington, D.C., versus a second-tier market, which is generally something more similar to Boise, Idaho. So these surveys were indicating at the end of 2023 that suburban office buildings are trading at 8% cap rates or above. So we applied an 8% cap rate and concluded to a value of the total economic unit of $23,413,100. This is about $100 a square foot for this older office building. Trying to align our methodology with the county's, we then deducted the land value of the second parking parcel, and so are requesting a value on this building parcel only, this parcel 110, of $20,532,000 because I rounded. To very quickly address the second land parcel. The second land parcel is parcel number ending in 160. It's just less than 6 acres. It's located directly east of the office building. It's parking. It is surface level parking. It's improved with asphalt parking striping. There are a few cut-through sidewalks in order for pedestrians to access the office building. There are a lot of different ways to value land. I chose a per square foot metric. The property is currently assessed at $4,754,000, which is about $19.80 a square foot. Vacant or potentially developable land in Ada County is few and far between. That's for office development. So I did do a search. I identified 3 land comparables that were either already vacant or potentially going to be vacant, as in it required a demolition in order to redevelop. And I went with the sales that were closest to the Albertsons building in terms of geography, because there's a very wide range. The further out you go, the less comparable land to our site along the Boise River. So at the top of page 2 of that shorter presentation is a very brief summary of the 3 sales that I identified. If you read the comments or notes there on the right-hand side of that grid, 2 of those properties were intended for apartment development. Typically, apartment development is going to be looked by the purchaser of the land on a per unit basis. How many units can you fit on that land? So I selected the middle sale, which was a commercial property intended to be continued to be used as a commercial development, which was $12 a square foot. As I said, not a ton of data out there to leverage for individual land values, and I didn't find any parking lots for sale. But based on what I was able to find, we are concluding to a value of $2,881,200, which is the value that I then deducted from the unit value calculated in the first presentation. With that, I know I'm at time, so if you have any immediate questions, I will address those. Otherwise, I'll let the county present theirs.
Do you want to summarize your Board of Tax Appeals and what happened there?
Sure. So in 2023, Albertsons appealed to this board. There was no change in the value. We appealed further to the Board of Tax Appeals. For that appeal, Albertsons did request an appraisal, of which I have a copy if you need to flip through it. The appraisal value that was presented at the Board of Tax Appeals was $30 million for the economic unit. At that time, the parking parcel was not included in the BTA appeal, so the concluded value in the Board of Tax Appeals is $25 million. I'm sorry, I have it here. For the parcel that we're discussing today, the assessed value was concluded at $25,246,000 for the office building parcel. The BTA decision is included in my presentation package for your reference. It begins on page 20 if you want to flip through that. And the BTA value conclusion is on page 31 of the 33 pages in my packet if you want to see that.
So they determined it was worth approximately $25 million, and you're arguing for $20 million today?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
So, in the Board of Tax Appeals again, so I'm trying to clarify, the total value that they established was 25?
For the office building
The
parcel.
building itself? Okay. 25,246.
All right, we'll turn it over to the assessor's office for their presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Daley. Mark Southard here, appraisal analyst with the Ada County Assessor's Office. So with these Albertsons corporate offices, we're treating these two parcels as a single economic unit. The primary parcel on page 1 of the packet is the entire building complex, and it includes the west side parking lot. The secondary parcel on page 2 is adjacent to the main parcel and consists just of the east side parking lot that they just presented. And that parcel has no improvement value on it. It's just land. Again, we're treating this as one single economic unit. They were appealed last year, upheld at BOE, and we just mentioned modified at BTA. The county has taken this BTA decision to district court on the basis there was actually 2 appraisals that were considered. One was at 30 million, the other one was at 38 stabilized. So there was some considerable differences between those two opinions of value stabilized, and that was part of the impetus for the district court case. The building's BOMA RA is 233,766 square feet. That was some area of contention last year as they were using net rentable area. We only use BOMA rentable area, BOMA RA. The subject was reappraised for the 2022 tax year and was adjusted based on market trends for 23. There was no change for 23 going to the 24 assessment. I'm also very familiar with this building as I worked there for Xerox Corporation many years ago. On pages 3 and 4, we have aerial views of the property, and the appellant already kind of discussed this too. And then page 5 is another oblique aerial. And then page 5, we have a income summary report which shows the details of the calculations that were made to determine the property value for 2023, and then there's no change for 2024. So this applies to both years. The income approach was used based on market rents to support the assessed value. In performing the income approach, we have to find comparable data of the largest size buildings that we have available. So we kind of have to go outside of the scope, recognizing that this is a somewhat superior area, being near downtown Boise and along the river. So of the ones that we do have, they're on page 6. Those are, some of these were used at BOE last year. We've excluded both the Meeker and Cobalt comps that were at our disposal that was brought up on appeal, both of which sold as vacant, unstabilized office space. We can see from these comparables that it indicates a market range of about $13 to $15 a square foot. We're using $13.20 triple net. We can convert back and forth between full service and triple net pretty. 9 is a consideration of reported income market parameters for both Southeast Boise market. In 2023, the Boise MSA reached some of the highest office rents on record. 2 commercial brokerages reported on this. On page 10, CBRE reports in late 23 an all-time high amongst Class A office rents